Okay, so name of the next reading, interest rates. Now it's a very large size reading in a way that we would be covering various concepts of derivatives and fixed income in the same reading itself. So we'll have to start with understanding what interest rates really mean and go to the level of learning concepts like bootstrapping in fixed income, how to derive spot rates, and also certain parts of derivative where we'll have to understand how to do calculations for FRA. So this is the agenda. We first understand what's LIBOR, what is Treasury rate, what is Repo rate, and what is the meaning of the word risk-free. Then value of an investment using different compounding frequencies. So we'll have to do a little bit of time value of money here. Interest rate based on different compounding frequencies. Then theoretical practice of valuing a bond using spot rates. Then finding out forward rate from the spot rates. FRA, duration, limitations, and then change in the bond price using both duration and convexity. Okay. So let's get started. First concept, Treasury rates. So give heading in your notes. Treasury rates. Tell me what are Treasury rates? Yes, rates that you would earn by investing into an bond issued by the sovereign authority or government. So what instruments are available? So you can either invest into a treasury bill, or you can invest into a treasury note, or you can invest into a treasury bond. Treasury bill is a short-term instrument. Treasury note is medium term, and treasury bonds are long-term instruments. So typically we are looking at maturity up to year 1. This would be up to year 10, and these would be 20 and 30 years. Another thing you would want to know is that treasury bills are pure discount securities. Treasury bills are pure discount securities, or we also use the word zero coupon. Pure discount securities, or alternatively we also use the word zero coupon. But both treasury notes and bonds, these would be coupon instruments. Now what do you understand of pure discount? Yeah, so you might purchase this instrument at 970, you wouldn't receive any coupon, but on maturity you would receive 1000. So that is a pure discount security. What would be LIBOR? Yes, very London Interbank Offered Rate. And what is this? The rates at which banks will lend to each other. So let's write a short note on this. So say LIBOR, point number 1. So it is a interbank lending rate. Okay, we are specifically referring to the US LIBOR. So it is interbank lending rate. Second, the currency is US dollar. Third, location of the transaction has to be outside US. Location of the transaction has to be outside US. Fourth, it is a short-term loan, and maturity could be 30 days or 90 days or 60 days or 270 days or 360 days. These are different maturities. Number 5, it is a add-on rate. It is a add-on rate. Number 6, it uses 360-day convention. it uses 360-day convention. Any of these points you are not comfortable with? What is the add-on rate? So imagine you go to a Saukar in India to take a loan. In US we would call them as money sharks, and you want to take a loan of 100 and you ask him what would be the interest rate. Let's say he says 5%. So when you actually get the loan, you would only be given 95 in your hand, correct? And then on the date of maturity you will have to pay back 100. So this 5% now is called as a discount yield, or it is a discount rate, similar to treasury bill, which was a discount rate. But if you go to a bank and you decide to take a loan of 100, then they will charge you 5 and you would end up paying 105. So this rate would be called as a add-on rate. Make sense? And of course, even though both of them are 5%, we know that in the first case you are actually paying a higher amount because you are paying 5 on 95, whereas in the second case you are paying 5 on 100. So how does LIBOR typically work? In fact, just add up one point to our list. I'm sure you know this point, but just to make things easier for us later on, different LIBORs exist. Different LIBOR exist for different maturities. Different LIBOR exist for different maturities. Different LIBORs exist for different maturities. Okay, so how does the numerical work on this? Let us say there are 3 LIBORs available: a 30-day LIBOR, a 60-day LIBOR, a 90-day LIBOR. 30-day is 6%, 60-day, I'm just making up hypothetical numbers, 80 days 8%. You have decided to take a loan of $10 million for 90 days. So if your loan maturity is 90 days, then the rate that you would want to use is a 90-day LIBOR. So then how would we calculate interest? We will say 10 million into 8%. That's it? No, because that 8% is always a annual rate. So LIBORs are always quoted as annual rates, and that we will have to adjust for the maturity. So that is how much? 360. 365, 366, it has got nothing to do with this. What it says is, on an average, how many days in a month? And how many months in a year? 12. So how many days? 360, that's it. So 250, how much would that be? 250,000? No, it would be 250,000. Yeah, 200,000. That would be the amount of interest. Have you written the example? Please write. The question Animesh is asked, he's asking how do they derive at 8%? So these rates are daily reported by bankers. The one in the center. The top 4 rates and the bottom rates are removed. So see, after the scam came out with LIBOR, the calculation methodologies were changed and it's slightly more regulated. But how we can think of this? This is on an average is the rate at which one bank is giving a loan to another. So it's a consolidated rate of multiple banks. Should we go ahead now? Okay, so we know what is LIBOR. Can you tell me what would be a repo rate? Yeah, so in India we use repos and reverse repo in the context of transaction between banks and central banks. But for FRM exams, the repos and reverse repo would be used in the context of bond dealers. Okay, so imagine you are a bond dealer, and what you want to do is you want to borrow temporarily you want to borrow for some time. So the most common repo is an overnight repo, where you would borrow for one night. But for this example, I'm going to keep a simplified example of 1 month. So this is the bond dealer, and then this is the lender here. So what bond dealer will do is it will give him a security. So that security is given to the bond dealer, and he will give him the security at a price of, let us say, 96. So he will receive $96 from the lender, and then he will make a promise that after a few days that security would be bought back, and it would be bought back at a price of 100. Right? So technically what is really happening here is that you are taking 96 today. After 1 month you are paying 100 to buy back the same security. So you are actually paying an interest of 4 on 96. So this is nothing but a loan, but it is structured in the form of a repurchase agreement. That's why it's called repo repurchase agreement. Zero coupon bonds, sir? Yeah, this is a zero coupon instrument in a way, but that lender is not a issuer. So he would not really issue 1,000 such repos. He will issue based on the requirement. Now there are 2-3 things we need to consider here. Number one, this 4 on 96 is technically your interest rate. This we will call as the repo rate. This would be called as repo rate. Now imagine that this security, when it was given, it was worth 101. So that security that you gave, that was worth 101, but you took loan of only 96, or in a way 100. So that difference between the value of security and the value of loan, this is called as repo margin. This is called as repo margins, or at times we also use the word haircut. So haircut is the difference between the price of the security that you gave and the amount of loan that you have taken. And this transaction, repurchase agreement, is essentially nothing but a collateralized loan. You have given a collateral and then you have taken a loan out of it. So the question is asked, if we give a security and that security gives a dividend. So rather than dividend, let us say that security gives us some interest. Then who it belongs to whom? So generally you wouldn't have securities which will have cash flows. And if at all there are cash flows, technically the cash flow belongs to borrower, because when you return the security, if there was a cash flow, the value of the security would have fallen. Right? So you would give him the security and the cash flow together. The lender doesn't get to earn on the security. He's not the owner, it is a collateral with him. Okay, in real life, the security is actually not given. Okay, so what happens in real life scenario is that this security is deposited into a bank. And that bank in a way works as a guarantor, that in case if the loan is not repaid, then that security would be given to lender. Or if you are a good credit quality borrower, you wouldn't even give it to the bank. It would just remain with you and you would still sign an agreement. Are we fine with this concept? So 3 things in fact. Number one, just a minute. Number one, what is a repo margin? Repo margin is the difference between value of security and the amount of loan. Then what is the repo rate? Repo rate is the interest that we have paid on our collateralized loan, or interest that we pay on the loan. And repurchase agreement, even though it is an agreement to buy and sell security, it is actually a collateralized loan. This is what we need to know. Yes. The question is asked, the security we deposit in a bank, is it like a bank guarantee? Yes, it is. Right? So instead of sending it to the lender, you just put it into a bank. So it is similar to a guarantee. Not bank guarantee, but similar to a guarantee. Now, it is not in this reading, but there is some discussion on repo rate is a function of what. Will the repo rate be higher or lower? It is dependent on what. So repo rate is a function of, number one, what is the FFR? FFR is federal funds rate. This is a rate at which one bank would give loan to the other bank in US. So federal fund rate. So roughly you can think of this as the general level of interest rate in the market. So if general level of interest rate in the market is higher, repo rate would be higher. The question is asked, how is it different than LIBOR? LIBOR, there was a condition that the transaction has to be outside US. Whereas in FFR, we are essentially referring to rates inside US. So in a non-US context, repo rate would be a function of what is the general level of interest rate in the market. Then it would be function of credit quality of borrower. If borrower is risky, then repo rate is higher. If borrower is not risky, repo rate is lower. Then it is a function of quality and demand of your collateral. Quality and demand of your collateral. So if your collateral is in high demand, repo rate would be lesser. Collateral is in low demand, repo rate would be higher. And it is also a function of delivery terms. So if that security is actually delivered to the lender, it's more safer, so repo rate would be lesser. But if the security is not delivered to the lender, then repo rate would be higher. So the question Sanchit has asked, anyways, if that collateral is simply a guarantee, then why demand of collateral is important? So what happens at times is, it's a little complicated, but imagine this lender has some other derivative position open. Okay, so he has some other derivative contract, and on that other derivative, he is supposed to give delivery. And delivery of which asset? Delivery of this security. But unfortunately, that delivery is in short supply right now. So what he can do is he can enter into the repo on the opposite side, take the delivery, then finish his obligation on the second derivative, and then by the end of the month again buy the security in the market and give it back to the original borrower. So therefore also the demand and supply mechanism of that collateral plays a role. At times also happens that this borrower will enter into a repo, but he will not really provide that delivery or the collateral to bank, neither he would give it to the lender. The transaction would be purely based on trust. And then there is a possibility that fraudulently he might enter into the same collateral with one more lender. So he might enter into that repo with someone else, or he might simply sell out that security in the market. So all these variables play a role into this. Have I made this very complicated? No. So let's get back to basics here. Repo is repurchase agreement. It is a collateralized loan. Repo margin is difference between value of security and the amount of loan, and repo rate is simply the interest paid. Let's move on. Is there a mechanism through which you keep a track that one security will have only one repo? So I'm sure most of the OTC markets will have some mechanism. I don't know, but I'm guessing there should be. But if it's a cross-platform where you're trading on multiple OTC markets, then it would be difficult. Okay, now the next discussion is on risk-free rate. Traditionally, the securities issued by government and backed by their sovereign taxing authority, those securities interest rate is considered as the risk-free rate. For example, securities issued by US Fed and which are backed by the US taxing power or authority, those securities would be considered risk-free. Are we together? Those securities are considered risk-free. But now there are two things here. Number one, we have seen in the past that even governments have defaulted on the payment of interest and principal. So we know what happened in Russia with the Russian debt default. We also know what happened in Argentina, and many Latin American countries are struggling. Any other country? Yes, Greece. So Spain. So we have seen that even governments have faced trouble in making the payment. But traditionally, that is how the literature is structured, that securities issued by government are risk-free. And for FRM program, whenever we would be referring to RFR, we are essentially be referring to US Treasuries. But when we say risk-free, we are actually referring only to the credit risk. So in a way, that risk-free word could also be misleading to some extent, because we should ideally be saying it is credit risk-free. It is not completely risk-free. So you buy a government bond and you buy that when the yield in the market was 8%, and after some time the yield changed to 9 because of market conditions, inflation, the price of the bond will come down. Okay, so this risk-free is in the context of credit risk and maybe to some extent liquidity risk. But we can definitely say that it will still have risk, and which risk would that be? It would be the interest rate risk. The risk that interest rate will go up. Are you in agreement with me? Do you want to ask any questions here? Should we go ahead then? Alright, so let's stop for a break. 15 minutes. Alright, so next learning outcome is about finding out value of investment using different compounding frequencies. So essentially this is nothing but a learning outcome more on time value of money. So first we will learn the conversions. Conversions as in converting one frequency into different frequency. So let us say we have 15% quarterly. Please convert this rate to annual rate. This is 15% compounded quarterly. So convert that to annual compounding. 15.86. So how do we do this? Please try to appreciate that when they say 15 quarterly, it doesn't mean every quarter 15. It means 15% per annum compounded quarterly. So if that is the case, then one quarter the rate would be how much? 3.75%. That's 15 divided by 4. Then how much for 4 quarters? That's how we have to calculate. But we cannot cross multiply. We have to use time value of money. So we will say 1 plus 3.75% raised to 4 minus 1. How much would that be? 15.86%. If you do not want to use formula, an alternate TVM route is set your present value to be 100, set your IY to be 3.75, set your N is equal to 4, and then say compute future value. Should we go ahead? Now we have 17% compounded semi-annually. Convert that to a monthly compounded rate. 16.4. How much? It will be less than 17. Compounding frequency increase, the rate should be lesser to match up. 16.4. Alright. So if you want me to throw a formula at you, it would be 1 plus 17% divided by 2 raised to 1 by 6 minus 1 into 12. Let's see if this gets us the answer. So 1.085 and 1.085, that's half of 17. Are we together? 1.085 y raised to x, bracket open, 1 divided by 6 bracket close, equal to minus 1 into 12 equal to how much? How much? 16.4%. But let's say you don't like the formula, which I can clearly see on your faces now. So alternate is you can use time value of money. Now time value of money, again there are two methods. So let me show you both of them. I think let's keep it simple. What you do is, we know 17% is semi-annual. So can you convert this to annual rate? So let's convert this to annual rate using time value of money. So now you say 100 present value, 100 present value, then 8.5 is your IY, 2 would be your N, compute future value. So it is 17.72. So 17.72 is your compounded per annum. Okay. Now what logic you have to use is, you have to say, if I deposit 100 in a bank today, then the rule is that by the end of the year it has to become 117.72. Correct? But this time around we want it to compound 12 times in a year. So then what should be the monthly rate? So compute IY. How much? But make sure you avoid error 5. So keep 100 negative as present value, 117.72 as future value, 12 as N, compute IY. How much is that? 1.36. Now this 1.36, whatever that number is, multiply that with 12 because that's a monthly rate. So convert that to annual. Is it getting you 16.4? Now there is one more way. There is one more way of doing this. And this time you say, please do this with me. This time you say present value negative 100, but future value 108.5. So now you're telling your calculator that in 6 months, so N is your 6, 100 will become 108.5. So what should be the IY? Compute IY. And whatever IY you get, multiply that with 12. And it will again get you 16.4%. Which one is easier? So do whichever you like, but do it using logic. Do not remember the steps, because if you do, then you would get stuck somewhere on the exams. Should I repeat the third? I mean, repeat the keys or the logic? Logic. So 17% semi-annual, what it truly means that every 6 months you are going to get 8.5%. Half of 17 is 8.5%. So if you invest 100 today, in 6 months it will become 108.5. So therefore N is 6. So what is the rate per month? Compute IY. And once you get monthly rate, then multiply that with 12, you get 16.4%. Do you want to play around further? Are you finding this difficult? Let's do one more. 18% quarterly. All these rates are per annum. 18% quarterly. Convert this to a monthly rate. I mean compounded monthly, but rate has to be annual rate. Do you want to do it with a formula or TVM? TVM. So present value is 100. Future value would be 104.5. N would be 3. And then compute IY and just multiply this IY with 12. Is that fine? Okay. So they've given some fancy formulas. I don't think you really need them. Just build logic around it so that you would be comfortable. Same learning outcome, interest rate based on different compounding frequencies. Now we'll just do a couple of questions on continuous compounding. Let us say rate is 18% continuous compounded. Please convert that rate to an equivalent annual rate. Also convert to equivalent monthly rate. Also convert to an equivalent daily rate. Interest rate is 18% compounded continuously. Convert that to annual, monthly, daily. Monthly is 19 point. Annual is 19.72. Monthly is what? 18.14. And daily? 18. Do you want to do this together? So from continuous to annual, you will have to use exponential function. Okay, so please do this with me. Have 0.18 on your screen. Please have 0.18 on your screen, 0.18, and then say second e raised to x. So when you say second e raised to x on your screen, it will show 1.1972. And 1.1972 means $1 has become 1.1972. So it has grown by 19.72%. Is that fine? Now, how to calculate monthly rate? So keep 100 as present value, minus 119.72 as future value. Keep 12 as n, minus 119.72 as future value, 12 as n, compute IY. Then whatever IY you have, multiply that with 12. Is it getting you 18.14? Yes or no? 14? Now what you do is just say n as 365. Override, don't do second clear TVM. Just say n as 365 and compute IY and multiply the IY with 365. Is it getting us 18%? Are you struggling with logic here? Do you want me to explain the logic behind this? 18%? Are you clear with the logic? Yes, no? Any part you are not comfortable with? Daily, monthly and daily. So same logic. The rule is, if your annual rate is 19.72, then 100 has to become 119.72. So this should be always the present value, this should be the future value, irrespective of what is the frequency. So if n changes, IY will change, but present value, future value would not change. So if you keep your n as 12, it will give you a monthly rate. And then multiply that monthly rate with 12, you get the annual rate. If you keep your n as 3, then it will get you, if you keep it as, thoda cheating, if you keep it as 365, it will get you daily rate, and then you multiply with 365. But the rule is that present value and future value would never change. That's how you get equivalent rates.